Hello class. My name is Mark Fandel. I'm the professor at Ori Georgetown Technical College. I teach anatomy and physiology. This is some PowerPoint slide videos I want to make for the 2021 fall semester. We have switched over to using the new edition, the 16th edition of McGraw-Hill Hole's Anatomy and Physiology. So let's get right into it. Chapter 1 is all about the foundation of communication. It's going to have a lot of lists of things and a lot of foundational material. It can be a little bit difficult to figure out where to start when you've got something as complex as the body. So they're trying to do the most basic at first, but there are some wide-ranging parts to these. So let's begin. We start by just talking about how anatomy and physiology, what we call anatomy and physiology, and the study of the body came into being. It really started with the Greeks. Before that, people were kind of scared to mess with the body. They thought it was disease processes were curses and whatever. So there was a lot of mythology and superstition about it. But the Greeks were the first that started having human cadavers and starting to dissect and look at things. And it's just unfortunate for us here in America that speak English that the Greeks did not speak English. They spoke Greek. So most of the things we're going to learn throughout this course are going to be words that are Greek. And if you can get a hold of some basic ideas of the language, it really will help in studying this. But yeah, unfortunately, they didn't speak English. They were, however, a lot of them that were very amazing artists, and there's some really cool pictures of the human body during this early time period. And moving on through time, you get to like someone like Leonardo da Vinci, who is just one of the most brilliant men. And a majority of his time was spent studying the human body and how it works and how it's put together. And he has a lot of amazing pictures that are pretty famous. So anyway, not going to test you on this, of course, but I just wanted to show you that. This is where we finally get into things that are things to know. Well, first, I'm trying to figure out this. Anatomy and physiology. If I'm going to, I'll just use the mouse. Ooh, that's bad. But it's all right. I think you're following me. If I'm going to take a class called Anatomy and Physiology, the main thing I want to do right off the bat is understand what those two terms mean. They both have very deep meanings. Anatomy is the study of structure. Physiology is the study of function. And while they are different things, they are very much intertwined because the way something looks, the anatomy of it, is going to be determined by what it's designed to do, which is the physiology, what it does. And what it does is going to end up shaping the shape, the anatomy. So they go very much hand in hand, so to speak. So anatomy is the study of structure, physiology is the study of function. So when we look at this picture here, we could talk about the hand, but I want to use the ear here because the way your ear looks, this little part here, how it looks, this is designed as a type of a funnel. It catches sound waves that are going in and they channel it into this little canal called the Q-tip canal. Just kidding. The external auditory meatus, this canal that at the end of it, we have this really special membrane called the tympanic membrane. The average person calls it the eardrum. But the way the outer ear looks, which just seems, no big deal, but it is specifically designed for its job. So the anatomy, the look of it, is totally intertwined with what it does, the physiology. Now, one of the things we need to understand through this course, we're going to look at different organ systems. Ooh, I didn't mean to have a red part there, but different organ systems throughout the body. But before we get to that, we need to see how those organ systems are built. So we need to look at this step by step, kind of Lego by Lego, so to speak. So I'm going to start first, not at the very beginning, unfortunately, but atoms. Atoms are the tiniest organization of anything that we consider matter. They are the fundamental portions of chemicals. So everything we know from here on Earth to the farthest reaches of the universe are going to be made up of atoms. Now, atoms are made up of small particles, but once we break down an atom, things really get weird, and we won't get into that in here. That's more what the people in quantum mechanics get involved with, and quantum mechanics is a very odd subject. So, but all I want you to know is atoms are made up of subatomic particles. This prefix sub means below, submarine, below the water. So subatomic particles means the particles that are below the atom. And there's three types. We've got protons, neutrons, and electrons. Now, we are going to get into this in the next chapter, chapter 2, and look at how atoms form, because that's how we're going to study this class. We're going to start at the building blocks, show how they get together, how they work together, and then see how they continue to build into what we consider the organism, the body. So atoms are made up of subatomic particles, and they are protons, neutrons, and electrons, and we'll see how they're organized. Now, atoms can work together and bind, which they very often do, to form molecules. A molecule we're pretty familiar with, water, H. Now again, I'm trying to use the mouse pad to do this, so bear with me. H2O, that means I have 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 atom of oxygen, and that forms a water molecule. Now, certain molecules can be incredibly large. We classify those as organic molecules. And so we call those macromolecules. Now, macro means large. So all it's saying is, in the Greek language, that this is a large molecule. And DNA is the prime example of a large molecule. It is, as far as I know, the largest molecule that we are aware of. It is almost 6 feet long in real world size. If I wanted to make you understand or get you to understand how amazingly long that is on the microscopic level, if I had a cell that I could enlarge to where the nucleus was the size of a basketball, the DNA in that basketball would be close to 200 miles long. Anywhere, people will range it anywhere from about 125 to 200 miles long. And, that's a really, really long molecule. And just to think about that, imagine a fishing line that long and being organized inside that basketball in a way that it never tangles. So it's pretty amazing. But anyway, that's a type of a macromolecule. So we have atoms. Atoms get together to form molecules. Molecules will get together to form macromolecules. And again, we consider macromolecules, those are organic molecules, which means molecules of life. Those macromolecules will get together to form organelles. Now you can kind of remember this. Organelles are like mitochondria, ribosome, the things inside a cell. And you can kind of remember that an organelle is the organ of the cell because these get together to form cells. So organelles like mitochondria, ribosome, Golgi apparatus, rough and smooth endoplasmic reticulum, lysosomes, all these different things, they work together in a thing called a cell. Now, the cell is pretty interesting in the fact that the cell is to life forms what atoms are to everything else. They are the basic unit of life. So cells we're going to look at. We're going to see how a cell is put together and how it runs and how what different organelles, what their specific jobs are. But then we're going to find out that cells will work together with other similar cells in what we call a tissue. Tissue is simply multiple thousands upon thousands of similar cells working together, which is tissue. Now, different tissues will work together to form organs. Now, an organ is any time there is more than one type of tissue present working together. So things that you might not think of as an organ, like each individual bone, is an organ in and of itself because it's not only going to have osseous tissue, which is bone. It's also going to have nervous tissue, lymphatic tissue, circulatory tissue. So each bone in and of itself can be considered an organ. But now I'll use this and tell students and try to get you to understand this, but there's a certain type of organ that we think of, like the heart, the lungs, the liver, the stomach, soft, squishy organs that are the ones that even among the average person, if you said name one organ, that's basically what they would say. Those are called viscera. They're kind of set apart. Now, this isn't on this little slide here, but I want you to know that because it's going to come up later on in this chapter. Now, organs, like let's say this has listed the heart, has the kidney. Let's take the heart. The heart is part of an organ system, the cardiovascular system. And that's going to consist of heart and blood vessels. So there's different types of organs that work together to form what is called an organ system. Now, there are basically right now what we classify as 11 organ systems. Those organ systems work together like the cardiovascular system. The cardiovascular system works very hand in hand with the lymphatic system. All right, they're kind of cousins. But they also work together with the digestive system because as I eat and my food gets broken down and the component parts get absorbed, the ones that are good, the nutrients get absorbed, it goes into the circulatory system. And then some will see the lipids, the fats go into the lymphatic system. So they all work together. And then and then the respiratory system works with them and blah, blah, blah. So they all work together, even though they're different main jobs. But as they work together, they form what's called the organism, which is you or I. Now, I will tell you on the first test, I will probably have this list jumbled up and have you put them in order. Now, most people get all of these right, except for organelle. For whatever reason, people kind of forget that the organelle is the organs of the cell. So organelles make up cells, all right? They're what group together to make up cells. But I hope all that makes sense. So let's go forward. This picture is just showing basically the levels of organizations that we looked at. Atoms form molecules, molecules make macromolecules, they make cells. You know, there's an organelle area in here. The cells work together for tissues, tissues work together for organs, organs work with a group of other organs for an organ system, and they make up the organism. Now, through this book, you'll see some of these that are called clinical applications. I think on our PowerPoints that we have on D2L, don't have it as a red bar, but understand clinical application are not things that I'm going to hold you accountable for. There are some that I might stop and talk about. I think there might be one throughout this semester which will have some information that I'll tell you is fair game. But in general, we skip over the clinical applications. So now we're going to look at some key themes of anatomy and physiology. The main thing on here is this idea of homeostasis, which is how our body maintains a stable internal environment. So for instance, blood glucose levels, blood calcium levels, blood pressure, my temperature, all of these different things, our body has a set point, kind of like your thermostat at home has a temperature set point. And if it gets past it one way or the other, the air conditioner or the heater will kick on to bring it back to normal. And that's kind of how our body works. So all these cells, we've got the rough estimate is the average size individual has something like 75 trillion cells in their body. To put that in perspective, there's probably about 75 billion people on the planet. And while that sounds, or 7.5 billion, well, that sounds like a lot. That means that if every cell in our body was a person, you're talking about needing 1,000 more Earths to fit them in. So we've got a lot of cells in our body, is my point. And they're all working together, and our body has this ability to keep things stable, which is a huge deal and a sign of life. We can fight against what our environment is trying to push us in. So like if I go out into the Sahara, it's 120 degrees, Now, granted, I need water and I need some things to protect me, but inside my body, as I'm heating up, my body's doing mechanisms to try and keep me at about 98.6 or somewhere in a relatively safe range. And we call that homeostasis, maintenance of a constant internal environment. Now, when we're looking at how this happens, we're going to look at things like gradients. All right. First of all a gradient is how, for instance, chemistry will say a gradient is if I have like a wall, we'll say a cell wall, cell membrane, we'll say, and outside I have a whole bunch of molecules, and on the inside I only have a few. There is a gradient from here to here. All right, because of the concentration. We call it a concentration gradient. If these cells or these structures, whatever they are, ions perhaps, if they can move across this membrane, what will happen is we call that simple diffusion. The particles will move across till the concentration gradient is even. And that's all determined on the permeability of this little membrane. All right, so things like lipids. Lipids can move across the cell membrane pretty easily. So if I have a high concentration on lipids on one side of the cell membrane for the other, it will eventually even out. We call that simple diffusion. That is why, and lipids can do that. And that's why if you have a fat-soluble vitamin like vitamin E, you can rub it on your skin and it's absorbed. Another thing that's going to happen is our cells will become specialized. We all start off with as two half cells, an egg and a sperm. They get together. Once they get together, that is a unique life form. There is a strand of DNA that is unlike any strand of DNA that's ever been on the earth at that point. Now, your whole body is actually pre-programmed from that one strand of DNA, and it's kind of weird when you think about it. Everything from my eye to my kidneys to the muscles in my feet, all of those little cells and things have been pre-programmed from that one strand of DNA. There's a recipe in there that tells you how to build it, how to maintain it, how to run it, and so whatever. So when that first cell is formed, that cell will start dividing, but quickly, first all those cells are similar. We can't tell them apart, but then quickly we'll start seeing that different cells will be different. We call that differentiation. Some cells will take the path of being nervous system. Some will take the path of being digestive system. We call that cellular differentiation. Now, our cells themselves have to have a way to communicate with each other. And so we have cell-to-cell communication by membranes that are cell portions that are on the membranes. And we use those. Our immune system, our immunity, I'll just say, kind of looks at all that. This is how it tells you from non-you. But we use them to communicate as well. There's feedback loops. We're really going to talk about feedback loops a little later on because this is how homeostasis works. We call them feedback mechanisms. And then again, balance kind of goes back to gradients and permeability. Things will balance out if they can. And we need energy to stay alive. So that's mainly this slide. Some of the characteristics of life, like I said in class, the scientists you're going to notice are very anal. They're going to have everything listed, sorted, organized in every possible way. And this is one of them, one of the lists. Characteristics of life. All of these go back to what I was talking about with how life is the only thing that can fight against the natural flow of nature. So, for instance, if I put a plant next to a window, where you can see, and the leaves are facing the window, and then I turn the plant away from the window, those leaves will eventually turn and come back. That's against nature because they're responding to things. So characteristics of life are generally things that are going against the process of nature. For instance, growth. Cells grow, the organism grows. I'm a lot bigger now than I was when I was born. I'm sure my mother is very happy about that. But rocks aren't going to grow, unless there's some sort of force put to them. But rocks don't grow naturally. Reproduction. Look, all life, the driving force of all life is reproduction. This year I planted a bunch of sunflower seeds in the yard, and I kind of, because I'm geeky like this, I took a picture of a sunflower seed and I've watched the process as it goes from the sunflower seed to this plant. And it's pretty amazing. Within 2 months, it goes from a seed to this 10-foot plant. And on that plant, that one of the ones that I kept a monitor on, it had 40 sunflowers on it. And each sunflower, I took a small one off and counted them, and you're talking about close to 1,000 seeds on each one of them. So the whole point of that one seed is to make life forms to produce other seeds. But that's the same with us. But even at a cellular level, our cells have to grow. They have to divide and grow. And that's one of the point of growth, right? Responsiveness and movement. That's what we were kind of talking about with the plant. You know, I'm going to change the position of the plant. The plant will respond to the outside environment, the sunlight, and it will move its body parts to face it to make it optimal. The next little bit of it is metabolism. I will come back to here in a minute. All metabolism is the sum of all chemical reactions in the body. Boy, that was a terrible flat line. But anyway, so we are one big walking chemical factory. All kinds of things are going on in our bodies. The bottom part here, the bottom four, kind of tie in with metabolism. Respiration is bringing in, for animals, bringing in oxygen and giving off carbon dioxide. Now we're going to take this oxygen and transport it, circulation, to the cells, where we're going to take some of the glucose, which we digested, which means I'm breaking down food into useful and non-useful things. I absorb the useful, I excrete the non-useful. And then I'm going to take the different things, proteins, the building blocks of proteins, which are amino acids, for instance, around in the body, to help build the body. And then I'm going to take some of the building blocks of carbohydrates, which is called glucose. It goes to the cells. There it combines with oxygen to produce energy. And we're going to look at that. I think it's in chapter 4, it might be 3 or 4. But anyway, we'll see that. We call that cellular respiration. There are some things that all life is made up of, requirements. One of the main ones right off the bat is water. Our body is mostly water. All life processes that we know, all the chemical processes that go on in our body, the metabolism is all based on water. It needs water to make it happen. We need food because it provides building material and energy. We need oxygen to release that energy from the food. When we do, those chemical reactions of releasing the energy also releases heat. For instance, in every muscle contraction, over 50% of the energy that is released in the muscle contraction is released as heat. That's why anytime you start becoming active, you'll start raising your body temperature. It'll feel like you've become hot. Someone turned off the AC, so to speak. So if you go to the gym, you get on the treadmill, you start running, and it'll feel like it's hot. So heat's a requirement. Heat actually stimulates different parts of your body to do different things. So that's why you get a fever. In 211, the second semester A&P, when you start looking at that, you'll find out that fever is a natural thing. It's not something you want to necessarily be scared of, because it stimulates different parts of your body to do different things to help fight infections and disease. So the other one is pressure. Pressure is very important. We take it for granted. Like I live here along the East Coast, and so I'm at sea level. At sea level, there are 75 pounds per square inch on my body. So if I had a little steel beam that was 75 pounds and I could get it to where it was 1 little inch and put it, that's a lot of pressure. We don't feel it because we're here. We're around it all the time, but that's how our body uses that air pressure to help breathe. Then hydrostatic pressure, which is the pressure inside my body, that's the body that helps push blood and help the mechanism that's driving the capillaries, the gas exchange at the capillaries. So hydrostatic pressure is really important. Now, that's what we call blood pressure, and understand high blood pressure is bad, but also low blood pressure is bad, because if I have low blood pressure, I don't have enough pressure to drive the machine, so to speak, and everything will kind of come to a screeching halt. So even though more is bad, not enough is also bad on a different level. So anyway, that's kind of the building blocks. That's the first section of chapter 1. I will continue with some of these videos to put together. I hope they help, and I hope everybody has a wonderful day. Take care.